like video games, and I like pro wrestling, and therefore it stands to reason that I would like pro wrestling video games. And I do! I enjoy them each and every year, and I get a massive kick out of them. However, there is one that will always stand out amongst them all. For you see, if we turn the clock back to the millennium when pro wrestling was insanely popular, everybody wanted a piece of video game developer Yuke's, and they wanted that piece because they were damn awesome. WCW, NWO Revenge, WrestleMania 2000, and of course, WWF No Mercy, the best wrestling game ever made. Why? Here's why. Now this is nothing against the modern day run of 2K games, which I do very much like and think are very good. However, they are nothing when compared to WWF No Mercy, simply because nothing is. The N64 game was simply the best, and if you use the power of magic today to play it with a smooth frame rate, it still is the best. Even 17 years on, it's like the Ric Flair of the video game world. The question as always though is why? And in many ways, that's actually really simple. Aside from allowing you to have wrestling matches that felt real, and I cannot remember the amount of times that I had somebody down for the count and I was convinced that I was going to win, and then they popped their shoulder up at the last minute, it just understood how a wrestling match should be laid out. It understood it was a work, and that we should work the work into a video game. Whereas modern iterations feel more like fighting games, No Mercy was designed so you could plan out a contest how you wanted, so you were actively encouraged to book the match and then see if you could pull that off with a mate or against the computer. So if you went for a pin but you knew deep down this isn't where the bout was meant to end, you made sure your opponent kicked out. Crowd wasn't ready to go home yet, so you don't go home. Better still, No Mercy allowed you to do this. Completely understanding and appreciating what pro wrestling was, Yuke's masterpiece existed to take advantage of. It knew that the showmanship aspect of a WWE brawl was tantamount to everything, so it threw that in the player's hands and let you go crazy with it. It's wonderful. This extended further too when you wanted to work on a specific body part or you had a certain strategy in mind. How many times have you tuned into a pro wrestling match only to see one dude go, I'm going to focus on that guy's knee because my finisher is the knee bar, or something like that? The answer is all the time, because that is what pro wrestling storytelling and pro wrestling psychology is all about. If you chose to go this route with No Mercy, it's like the game knew, like it had become sentient and wanted to do everything it could within its power to ensure you could pull it off. I remember choosing Chris Jericho and deciding to work on my opponent's lower body so that when I did lock in the walls of Jericho, he would tap out like no one's business. And I did such a good job that as soon as I locked in the walls, he tapped out like nobody's business, and I thought to myself, I'm a damn good pro wrestler. I just did everything right. It was great, and it gave me a rush, and it made me react in the same way as when I've just watched an actual 5-star wrestling classic. And hot damn, son, if a game can make me feel like that, that's 2 thumbs up. Even better than that were the surprises it would often throw at you too. Seemingly understanding how submissions worked on every level, one time I thought, I'm going to pick Kurt Angle because he's got that badass ankle lock. And I took on Hardcore Holly, I locked on that ankle lock straight away, and he tapped within seconds, and I thought, good grief, I'm a badass wrestler. Again, that's what it did constantly. It made you feel like a badass, and all games should make you feel like a badass because they're not real and they're escapism from reality. No Mercy actively thought to itself, you know what? That ankle lock is devastating, and we're going to make sure that we convey that to you. And I jumped out of my chair, and I went crazy, and I sung all its praises to my friends. Then they went out and played it, and they sung its praises too. It made me feel awesome. It connected with me. That's what a game should do. Connect with me. Make me feel good. Like pro wrestling. And there you see the circle of life and how it all fits together. Now, sure, a lot of this was probably because I was a dumb kid, but given that I'm now an old man and I still remember all this fondly, well, that means it did something right. That's saying something, and it's a sensation I still miss today, as well as my long flowing hair that I used to have. It was the sheer amount of choice that sent No Mercy into the stars too. As well as a massive roster and all the usual match types, it threw ladders in there, you had special referees, the creator wrestler was better. You could hurl opponents through tables, brawl backstage, and with multiple stories in the single player mode. It was almost as if the developer had sat down and gone, have we forgotten anything? The answer was no, you haven't forgotten anything. It was all here and it was all done exactly how it needed to be done. It was a revelation. Hence why we're here 17 years later, and it's still the standard bearer for the whole genre. And sure, there were things you could criticise, such as the frame rate, if you had a particularly intense ladder match, That slowed down to a crawl, but one, nobody cared about frame rates back then, and two, going back to that magic we were talking about earlier, if you use that magic, it's negated anyway. That frame rate is fine. Besides, if somebody did remaster this, and somebody really should remaster this, that would be taken care of instantly, so there's nothing we have to worry about. And why hasn't that happened? Licensing, most probably, but every other damn game is getting remastered, so should this one, because everyone would soon realise, holy shit, this hasn't aged at all, graphics aside. I would argue that it still hasn't been surpassed, and while plenty of greats have come up afterwards, nothing will ever beat the best wrestling game of all time. And there's no mercy in case you missed everything I just said. And if I were to guess, I would say that will forever be the case. And think of that! The best wrestling game ever made already exists. Wonders never cease. Now don't forget to leave a comment below and let us know what you think about all this. Then like, share and subscribe. Follow What Culture on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. Follow me at SimonMiller316 and then head on over to WhatCulture.com and read yourself some articles. I am Simon from What Culture. This was the Why series. Have a lovely day.